well, this is I think a really good question, particularly given our panelists. The question is, how do entrepreneurship and education empower us to address some of the global issues and challenges that we're facing today? So how do education and entrepreneurship allow us to really solve big problems?
Kip, you want to go?
It's really interesting because for me, and I hear what all you guys were talking about. I was fortunate to grow up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Down the street was Harvard University, and down the street was MIT. And so growing up, I had mentors that were from all around the world as my tutors and mentors. And, hearing their research, playing on the university, getting to go to different summer camps, those are available. And I hear from Jennifer. I also hear from Nicole about not having that opportunity of being around, those kind of outlets at a young age. And so I really think that, you got to be around, again, people that dream and really are able to help you think through things. And I've been around in Massachusetts, there's a lot of nonprofits. And so I saw a lot of different community organizing from the ground level, and they became my mentors and my resource people. And now, as I look back on my career of 25 plus years in the nonprofit philanthropy and education field, is that now I have a lot of young people that were my 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds are now saying, hey, I'm planning to start my own nonprofit, or I'm doing this work. So I think that role modeling is very important. And as we now try to solve different issues that are going on globally, whether it be, whether it be, the gases or that are emitting from our community regarding equal opportunity and equity for all people of Black people, Latino people, and all different minorities and women and so forth. These are very important tools that we have of education and networks to actually bring to the table about sharing different resources and also being around people that have those different opportunities to dream. So I like being around big rooms where people are very creative. And it gives a good plug to a place called Launch at GSU, which was just opened up maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where there are a number of graduate students and undergraduate students that have a place just to be creative. And it's not just like 9 to 5. They have 24-hour access to actually sit in the room and share ideas, bring their teams there, and start businesses and getting resources and so forth. So, I think back to Brent when he was at Georgia State, what opportunity would he had if he had a launch there, a place where he can just start a small team of people just to come together and have free office space and free printing and all those other places. And I also think about Nicole, about being able to have a place to say, or even start an organization, or even just, being able to say, when I was really excited when she was on the call, because I said I'd never met a Latina as strong as before. I was like, wow. And I just wanted to sit back, as the sociology in me was like, what did you say when you told that to your parents when you were like, in 11th grade, I want to be, I want to follow this field? What did your friends and family say? Did they think you were crazy? I mean, I don't know. And I want to just pose that, but I want to put it right back to you, Nicole, about how, it's all also about young people taking risks, and also think about our own risk taking. I think about young people in middle school who have taken risks and got, detention or all these other things. And, and I think about how they've been rewarded for risks and how they haven't been risks. And that's the whole thing about being an entrepreneur, is that have we been rewarded for it, or have we not for it? And so we think about when people go to get their college degree and their master's and all that, what were their experiences in education? And so I also translate that into, of entrepreneurship as well. What has been the experiences of being supported by family members, friends, and networks while you do this work, or not being supported by that work? So that's a long, about answer, but I do want to throw it to Nicole to kind of just briefly talk about what her experience growing up, and she wants to share. You don't have to share, but also to lead into your question about just the work that you do as well.
Thank you. I actually I like this question about risk taking, because you definitely need that in entrepreneurship. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. Like, I don't think I could have started my company like on my own without having this kind of support system that I have. So for instance, I mentioned how, like, when I was growing up, my family was working class and we didn't have access to a lot of these things, right, that other people have access to. Even when thinking about like leisure time and like vacation time to go on a trip like that, and like, you know what I'm saying? So then there's a question of access, because, when I met my partner, I married my partner. He's a white man. He has no student debt, right? His parents own the apartment that we live in, right? And he was able to go to school. His parents was able to pay for his school. He doesn't have, he doesn't have loans and stuff. And he happened to study computer science. So by the time I was starting my company, he was able to take care of the bills. You know what I'm saying? So that's not something that everybody has, right? When I graduated with my Ph.D., I was so exhausted from literal like months and months and months of working like 12-hour days, no weekends off to finish my dissertation, right? And the only reason like that I could take a break after I graduated was because I didn't have to worry about the bills, because my husband, was being paid enough as a white software developer, because literally like his first job out of college, when they asked him for his starting salary, they came back and said, no, that's too low, we're going to give you more money, right? And the thing is, like, in my role, right, in my work, that never happens to Black and brown people, right? That's something that you're hearing, like, there's a huge pay gap, actually. So it's a lot of it is a matter of privilege, right? A lot of like, I went to Georgia Tech, right? So I know hella like engineers and scientists who are entrepreneurs, but they, some were able to use their trust fund to fund themselves to work on this idea full time, right? And that's when we talk about access, like I had incredible access. I was able to graduate. I took 9 months to like go and look for jobs without having anything else myself. I can't say the same thing for my Latinx counterparts who were getting their master's or their PhD. They had to go to work right away because they literally could not afford to start a business. And so I think that needs to be heavy in the conversation, because this taking risks, it's not an even playing field, right? And so the fact that like, my partner can bankroll my launch of my company, right? And it's like, this company does not have to be profitable for any time in the near future because I don't have to worry about bills. That's just not the reality for a lot of people, especially when we talk about Georgia State, right? It's like the highest population of Black students outside of HBCUs, right? I know that's like a really big deal and everything like that. And the thing is, like, when you talk about entrepreneurship, a lot of people don't talk about how, like for example, right, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, these people who like dropped out of college, right? But the thing that they have in common is that they're white men and they have access to more opportunities, to more networks, to more capital, right? And so these are the kinds of things that I think that we need to talk about so that we can talk about how to support students that are at Georgia State who don't necessarily have access to those things, so that we can remove those barriers and give them the pathway, right? Because for me, entrepreneurship was a way to create a path where there wasn't one. I can tell you right now, I'm the only person in my field, and astronomy is a small field compared to other fields, right? But I'm the only person with a PhD in astronomy who is doing, equity and inclusion consulting and work within my field, right? And that's just because, that's for a lot of reasons. But the thing is, if it weren't for like all these obstacles, I feel like there would be a lot more people.
Let's talk about, obviously Nicole and Chip's experience are unique and tremendously valuable. But let's address a couple of the questions that that Jennifer was asking about, and that Nicole and Chip both commented on, this idea of taking risks, and talk about what is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a lot of different things. It is not just starting your own company. A lot of people associate it with that, and Nicole's right, that involves a tremendous amount of risk and access to relationships and networks and those kinds of things. She's exactly right. And as we think about those people who have started their own companies and were famous entrepreneurs, as Jennifer mentioned and Nicole mentioned, the Elon Musks of the world, the Zuckerbergs of the world, you have to think of those like the best professional athletes. They are not, 99.9% of the population is not that. Most of us don't have, as Nicole said, maybe the access to relationships or networks. Most of us don't have the this unusual clarity and sense of skill set early on. And the benefit of an advanced degree is that it gives us the toolkit, to harken back to what Chip said earlier, it gives us the toolkit to be able to pursue whatever path it is that we want. And then when we think about what is entrepreneurship, I guess if you think of the Zuckerbergs and those of the world, we all played, different sports. If we think of swimming, we can all swim, but we're not Michael Phelps or we're not Katie Ledecky. Those people are unusual, and the Zuckerbergs are like those people. You have to think of yourself differently. You have to equip yourself with a toolkit to make yourself successful as an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, having a deep level of knowledge, which includes typically a graduate degree, is essential to being able to have the skill set you need to be successful. And then when you think about entrepreneurship, what it's really doing is equipping you to take your life in a lot of different paths, because life hands you some different, some surprises. Nicole got some surprises. Chip got some surprises. Have had some surprises. It doesn't take you in one direction. And so being entrepreneurial and having this skill and this mindset allows you to adapt to those situations as you move forward. And being entrepreneurial allows you is essentially a mindset around solving a problem. Nicole is addressing a fundamental problem in society. Chip is addressing a different problem in society. I address these, highly different problems from the problems that they're addressing. But the entrepreneurship attitude, the skill set that comes from a lot of deep study, at a graduate level, are the tools that allow you to adapt and build the life that you want and apply your entrepreneurship mindset, whether you're in a startup, as Nicole is, or whether you're in some established businesses that have gone way off the rails and you're turning them around like I do. And so, entrepreneurship can mean a lot of different things, and your entrepreneurship graduate degrees and your skill set can apply itself in a lot of different ways.
I have a quick question for Brent.
Sure.
Okay.
Brent, and also Nicole, this is for both of you. Both of you are starting advising CEOs and also universities and also different companies about just how to do their business. What are, as a consultant, what is your best advice to when people do take your advice and when they don't take your advice? I just wanted to kind of push that as in that area.
Well, let me take that first, and then Nicole can chime in with her own perspective. First of all, you don't start out as a consultant. The reason you adopt a consulting mindset, and frankly, I don't like being a consultant. I'm not a good consultant because I'm a doer. I'm an action-oriented guy, and I don't like to give people instructions and then walk away. I like to get things done for them. So this is the first time I've been a consultant, but you don't become a consultant right away. You have to go through the pains and the trials and tribulations of life to build the experience that gives you the perspective that then you can help others, because you're trying to help others avoid mistakes and avoid some of the same things that you've experienced. So to answer your question, Chip, what is the more valuable? I'm more encouraged when people, my consulting experience, I'm giving them a lot of advice, but I'm also going in and taking action, because I'm not just filling out a presentation saying this is what you should do. I'm showing them what they should do. I'm doing it with them because that's who I am. And so I'm more encouraged when the people are really willing to examine themselves, make themselves sort of vulnerable, be criticized and be critical of themselves, but then take action to get better each and every day. So then I'll let Nicole.
Vulnerable. I like that. Go ahead, Nicole.
Can you repeat your question, Chip?
My question was, here you are giving consultation to companies, universities, and individuals. Do they take your advice, and how do you take it? And when they don't take your advice, how do you take it?
So the work that I do, I think, is very interesting because it puts people in power on edge automatically, right? Because what I come in and say is that you have to examine your power dynamics. You have to examine your hiring practices. You have to examine your admissions policies, right? And I'm not coming in like fighting people, but coming from a Latina woman, like it might be perceived a certain way. It might be perceived in an angry way or, whatever, right? So for me, I kind of feel like it's not really my job, or I'm not in the business of making sure that people follow my advice. My job is to speak the truth and to examine the processes, right? And be a catalyst for further conversation, right? I have to be totally honest. I'm persona non grata at some places, right? Because I've come in and said, there's a lot of people out here, especially right now with all the protests going on around the world, right? Who want to say Black Lives Matter. They want to check that box. They want to give themselves a pat on the back, right? And there's a lot of places like this, and it becomes very uncomfortable when I come in and I'm like, okay, let's take a look not at this problem externally as if it's not happening, like within, individuals and within the culture, right? And so I really I can think of a couple of places where I have gone in and spoken that truth and it was not received well. And I am not invited back. But the thing is, for me, that doesn't really matter because number one, my bills are paid, right? So I'm not sitting here thinking oh, I have to make that next sale. I better be nice to these people and beat around the bush and sugarcoat things. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I'm I come in there, I do the job. I try to be, obviously I'm professional and I come in and I lay it all out and I write reports and I give people my recommendations. But as far as I'm concerned, if I'm not invited back to the conversation, there is plenty of work to be done. There's plenty of work to do, right? And so, one thing that I do when I go on these visits, right, is that I talk to the students, right? Because often the students don't realize they have the power to organize and make demands, right, of their departments and stuff like that. And so I talk to them and I'm this is what you need to do after I leave this place because, they're not accountable to me, they're accountable to you, right? And so that's a long-winded answer, but basically it's really, I really don't see it as, the clients that I have that are ideal clients understand the importance of self-reflection, and they understand that I come in with expertise, right? That I know my shit, and I'm going to tell them exactly what they're paying me to do, right? Which is to be honest with them. And then we can form a longer relationship. And that's really nice because then I don't have to fight people, right? But in the case that it's not well received, I don't think about it too much. And I'm still in touch with those students to see hey, is there change being made here?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.